Well, good evening, everybody. Hope you guys are having a wonderful Tuesday evening. Welcome to the Watch Hangout with our special guest, Ariel Adams. Ariel, thank you for being with us this evening.
Thank you so much for inviting me. It's a pleasure. And I have to say, I liked your little intro jingle. That was nice.
There you go. Hey, we're professionals, or we play one on TV or on YouTube or something like that. So we've got Blake Ray, of course, with the Lonely Wrist website and podcast. We've got Jen G, the enabler, and we call her the enabler because she convinces everybody to spend money they don't have to buy watches. We've got Mark down there. He's Luchabetic Mark because he's a wrestling fan and a diabetic. So there you go. And we have Mitch down there, Move Over Harpo. Mitch usually talks, but tonight he may be a little bit silent because he had a vocal cord procedure today. So not much voice. And everybody knows me. I've been the one emailing with you, Ariel, for like 2 weeks to get this set up. And let me tell you, Ariel is one of the most responsive people I have ever seen when it comes to answering email and actually wanting to do the show, because obviously he'd never watched it before. So we want to thank you.
I like podcasting. I've been doing it since 2010. I grew up admiring radio. It's just a genre that I have a lot of appreciation for, fun with, and I also think it's really good for storytelling. So I guess I support it on multiple levels.
Yeah, and you've got a couple of podcasts over there to Blog to Watch. I always watch the live part on a delay since you guys tape it at like midnight or 1 o'clock my time.
Yeah,
the Blog to Watch weekly. And while I have you here, I wanted to solve an issue that you guys have been having on a Blog to Watch weekly, and this has taken over the first part of the show. This has taken over the first part of the show the last 2 weeks. So we're going to solve this problem right here. Okay? This is a cookie. That is a cookie.
Oh, this is part of the food conversation.
And this is a biscuit. Okay, yes. Cookie and biscuit.
So I agree with you. Okay, we're from the same part of the world. But we will not have an agreement on this matter. I like going to other countries and seeing familiar words and then being surprised that it's not what I thought it was.
Right.
For example, in I guess Switzerland, like the French-speaking part of Switzerland and France, actually it's also the German part, they have changed what a taco is. What? So I have a very firm idea of what a taco is. My opinion will not be changed, but they have now taken the term taco, same way of spelling, and it now refers to a completely different kind of food that has literally nothing to do with our tacos. And I will defend our taco term.
That is sacrilege. Yes.
It's in fact, at one place they went so far as to call it a French taco, which just sounds like a nasty thing.
Oh no, man.
No.
So I think I was in Austria. This is I think I have a picture of it. This is almost verbatim what it said. It said the French taco, period, the tasty alternative. And I was like, what? Like, is there something wrong with other tacos that there needs to be an alternative? Why can't you just have a different name? You couldn't come up with anything else. You just had to be like, there's only one word out there that could describe our food and it's taco. And it's not your taco, but it's a tasty alternative. It was the weirdest food marketing I'd ever seen.
See, my thing is, if we co-opt in America, if we co-opt food, it becomes better tasting. If Europeans co-opt food, it becomes worse tasting, even though they know how to cook. Like somehow they
this is just their way of getting back at us for football.
Food terms are so linked to identity. None of these sort of conversations or debates are surprising. It's the same thing as being like, no, your sports team is worse. No, your sports team is worse. It's the same exact thing. It's all the same game. We all need to eat.
Even within the U.S., we've got issues with terms that vary across the country. I mean, from New York, we have the egg cream that has neither egg nor cream.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I was thought you were going to bring up gravy.
Gravy instead of sauce.
Yeah.
Is it a submarine or a hero?
It's a hoagie.
Thank you.
See, where I live, to get the best tacos, you got to go to like a supermarket, and then there's like a Spanish dude just like with his trunk open.
Yeah,
that sounds about right. That's where you get the best tamales.
Yeah.
And of course, in Austin, I've tacos falling out in my backyard. So we got tacos everywhere.
Go back
Probably the same with you, Ariel, since you're down in California.
Sorry, what'd you say about California?
No, I was going to say, since you're in California, you probably have the same issue I do. You've got tacos like in a truck in your backyard, like I do in Austin.
Oh yeah, it's weird. I never thought growing up that my culinary dining would be on a street corner. Right?
Yeah.
Like I thought I'd be going
Absolutely.
to restaurants with like facilities and stuff, but no, the apex of dining right now is from a portable kitchen that may not be there tomorrow.
That's right. Food trucks are all the rage, man.
Or in Northern California, we had the thing was Mexican grocery stores that had a little food
outside.
stand.
We have one of those here in Pittsburgh.
Yeah, so just to let you know where everybody is, Blake is in Las Vegas. The Enabler is in Ohio, the home of Skyline Chili, which I don't even get.
Ooh, no.
We've got Mitch is in St. Louis. Lucha is in Pittsburgh. I'm in Austin. So that kind of gives you kind of the lay of the land of where everybody is. Let's check the chat and see who is joining us tonight. We hope for a big crowd. We want to thank Thomas Burnett for staying up late again. Thomas is in England, so he's up in the middle of the night. We want to thank him. We want to thank Julius Caesar for being here. We've got the Anteater is in. Skylar Santana is in the house as well. Nate is here. He's a usual on the show as well, but he is flying this evening, going home from the holidays. We got Caliber YQG. Hello, nice to see Ariel Adams on. It's nice that he is on. We've got Sal in the chat. Hello, all. Hello, Ariel. I've been reading your articles going back to the blog to read days, rather. Great content and always bringing to light many of the underappreciated brands. And I would agree with that. And also Thomas Broadbent. Good evening, sir. Glad to have you in the house as well. I would agree with that because a blog to watch, and you founded it, and you're the owner and the managing editor and the publisher and everything else. A blog to watch is really balanced as far as you've got the high end all the way down to what anybody can get, anybody can afford.
That's on purpose. Yeah. Thank you.
And I noticed your latest article is on the crazy AP that you guys also talked about on a blog to watch weekly this morning.
Oh, you mean the Vacheron?
The Vacheron. I'm sorry. Yeah. With the moving
arms.
arms and all that stuff. Yeah. What did you think about that?
I enjoyed that they just sort of said, here, take it for a bit, wear it, enjoy it.
Wow.
That really allows you to understand what it's like to live with something like this, why someone might want it. These watches from afar can be very easy to ridicule or misunderstand, to be honest. But for the person who it's intended for, it's a very visceral experience. These are real power watches, right? And you may not agree with that, but it sends a very strong signal, not just to the people who see it on their wrist, but to the wearer themselves. It's kind of like a dial that tells you the time, but also says like, you're a big shot. And it's hard to do that in a classy way. And it's hard to do that in a novel way. And Vacheron is one of the few companies that's able to do it. And so you sort of need to appreciate it for what it is. You can't be like, I'm going to compare this to like $1,000 indie dive watch. I mean, they're both watches. They both tell the time, but that's really where they stop having any similarities.
Makes sense.
What is it like to be able to basically try almost everything out there on the market?
It's actually made me a bit lonely because I can't participate like a lot of you can in a community who's still trying to figure things out. I end up knowing probably more than most people. So I have sort of an academic position as a guide, more so than I can sort of just be a friend because I've already been down this road. I already know what a lot of this stuff is. I have a lot less curiosity. So it gives me an opportunity to lead and to inform and to help people with their hobby. But it also has made me be a little bit of an alien from a lot of the people who are going through it. I guess that's sort of the more pessimistic side of it in terms of the fact that I love the community, but I have to sort of pretend like I know less than I do. On the upside, I bring a lot of value to everyone. I communicate across the entire spectrum of watches with different types of audiences, with consumers, with people that work at brands, with people that design watches. I can have a coherent and interesting conversation with people from any part of the industry. It doesn't matter what they do, from selling watches in a store to making springs somewhere. I can have a really great conversation with just about any of them. And that's been really, really nice. And it's allowed me to continue learning all the time. I never feel like I'm done. I feel like I could do this for another 20, 40 years and I'd know more, but I wouldn't know everything.
Yeah, I hear that. First of all, we do have a super chat, $5 from Ray Jr. Or Roy Jr. Sorry about that. Awesome show to end the year. Happy New Year. Thank you, Roy. And you're in the race tonight. We have a race at the end of every show for all those people who super chat, and we also give away a couple of race entries, and that'll get you in for the monthly prize if you win it. We also want to thank Nate for his $5 super chat. How come Blake just gets Bell & Ross and 26 Doxas to try out, and Ariel gets the $250,000 VCs? Justice for Blake.
What about the Parmigiani that I just had, the Tonda that I just had for like 6 months?
There you go. See, justice has been served.
Justice served.
So let me ask you this, because you get to try out so many watches. What actually entices you to add something to your personal watch box?
I think when someone ends up having a lot of options to wear, what they're looking for is to fill in little gaps in their collection, right? Of course, there's wonderful watches out there, but sometimes you wouldn't wear it. And so I think that what I notice is people start to sort of find things that round out. Maybe it's a color, maybe it's a size, maybe it's a style. But you end up having watches almost like a wardrobe of clothing, and you're like, I don't have like a red one to fit this occasion. You know, that's sort of one way. I'm not the type of person that can afford most of the stuff these days, right? There's just watch prices have gone up so much, and there's this whole world of watches for, you know, the world's not just 1%, but like 0.1%. I'm not part of that. I don't pretend to be. I might be able to speak with them and help them make decisions. That's hopefully what I do. But I'm not like them and thinking to myself, you know what? I have a disposable $1 million to spend on a watch, right? I'm just going to spend $1 million on a watch. I don't care. That's extra money I have. It doesn't bother me to spend it. And it's fine. It's fine. It's just, that's a particular mentality. And people like that today have a lot of things on their mind. They're looking for service. They're looking for brands that make them feel good. They're not looking for value retention. And it's interesting that a lot of these folks who a few years ago would just go head over heels for brands like Patek Philippe in terms of how well they're treated have now changed course. And so I'm seeing a lot of differences out there in terms of the types of brands that even are popular to buy by the high-end collectors. It's a very evolving market right now. And I think what everybody really wants to get is not just a watch that speaks to them, but a watch where they can speak to the brand and the owner, and having a dialogue where you feel is respectful to you. That seems to be one of the most important types of reasons why someone does business with a brand these days.
Is that helping out more the independent and micro brands, because those are ones where you can speak to the owner in those cases?
Absolutely, yes. But I also think there's a lot of questions I have about business sustainability. You know, I like to think about business models that can sustain years, decades, even longer. I mean, this is an industry. You know, we're talking about Vacheron. They just celebrated 270 years of honestly near continual operation. A lot of brands come back. Maybe they were founded 200 years ago, but Vacheron, yeah, they have gaps, but like they've done a lot of stuff. This is an industry which is around for the long haul. So the little brands who you can speak to, they end up getting fatigued because going to all these shows, producing all these models, trying to make everyone happy, trying to be buddies with everyone, it gets really tiring for them. So it's great for a little while. And the big brands have tried to commoditize this, but that ends up being awkward and manipulative, where they're like, here's your customer relationship manager. They'll take your information of the watches you want and then let you buy them 2 years from now. You know, like it's so formulaic that it doesn't feel natural and doesn't make people feel good about themselves. So it's one of the most important areas right now, but it's also in a sort of very chaotic type of evolutionary mode where what works right now may not have a lot of viability even a couple of years from now. We
want to thank Mr. GMT for the super chat of $5. Happy New Year, punters. Hope all have a safe and healthy 2026 and stay sexy as he cooks the souvla in Australia for his New Year's Eve celebration, which is coming up a little bit later. And we want to thank Mitch on the panel, but also asking a question with a $5 super chat. Are interesting horological pieces being priced out of the range of everyone except billionaires?
You want me to answer?
Yes, go ahead.
Oh, sure. I like that you're getting people like will give a tip and expect a question answered. It's very pure. I like that. Look, I go back to the beginning of this industry, and you have to realize the watch industry has always been about exclusive things for then billionaires. Okay, you look at like Mr. Breguet's era. Who was he making watches for? Like kings and like high aristocrats. Like even a very wealthy merchant could only afford the like most basic stuff that these people made, right? Like just that one hand watch that no one cares about. But any complication, like you had to like own land, like a lot of it. So the idea that these types of things have become democratized is more like a nice benefit, but not a promise. These have always been things for society's most elite people. It started that way, and it always sort of tends to go in that way. The idea that there is a mass-produced, affordable, high-quality timepiece is really an American invention. We kind of abandoned that in sort of the 50s or so, but we created the culture of everyone deserves a decent watch to know what time it is. And we still buy into that. But Europeans were never about that. They don't care. The only pedestrian people they ever cared having a good watch were soldiers. Other than that, it didn't matter to them if anyone could tell the time. There's clocks in the town center for that. Americans created the assembly line, the mass produced, the patents, the sort of modern approach to building watches. And so yes, it's great that those types of products are available, often now mostly made in Asia, but European sort of like high design watchmaking has never intended or pretended to be democratic.
My own experience, having started collecting about 25 years ago, is that back in the beginning, I was able to afford VCs and my collection was a lot of what people would consider high-end stuff. Peter Speak Marin in terms of independence, VC, Longa, AP. Even though I have more, or at least as much disposable income now as I did back then, I can't afford many of those watch brands anymore. And so I'm concerned that, people are going to wind up, the sultans of the world can afford to buy Grunfelds and Rudoleinens, et cetera, and the rest of us will have to make do, quote unquote, with the various micro brands.
Well,
there's nothing wrong with micro brands. But
we have to be comfortable abandoning those brands that we grew up desiring. It's a weird thing. You're supposed to like grow up as a kid and be like, I want a Ferrari someday. And you still want that Ferrari as an adult if you're ever able to afford it. Now we have to be open-minded that there will be competition that will fill in the gap left by a lot of these brands. It's slow. It's not an immediate process. Right now, there's this incredible diversity of small brands who are all, whether they know it or not, vying to be the next medium brands. It's no clue what will win. It's not really based upon design. It's a combination of variety of factors, personality, luck, things like that. I'm not saying they're going to be the next Omega, but eventually they could be that next $5,000 or $6,000 watch. There'll eventually be watches that are $10,000 that from those brands are now $30,000. The market as it works is very, very good of determining and filling in price gaps. We have to recognize that major companies like Seiko's and things like that are still in an active mode of pushing into higher price points. They were the types of companies that would fill these gaps. Now they're creating new gaps. The small brands recognize that there are these price holes. They're not as financially solvent as a major corporation might be to do marketing and distribution, things like that. So you have this kind of very nuanced, slow burn of ideas and things like that. But that's what's going on. So you will still be able to buy watches. It just won't be from the brands that you might expect. That's really what it comes down to, in my opinion.
We've got a, hang on just a second, Blake. We'll get to your question in just a second. Ryan Hofre, shalom. Read my chat message with bravado. Don't get drunk and arrested tomorrow, ladies and gents. Happy New Year. Shalom. There you go, Ryan. Thank you so much for the super chat.
Drunk and arrested. That's really the dangerous combo there. One or the other, not so bad. But at the same time,
I don't know. The arrested can be pretty bad no matter what.
Yeah, but if you did something while you're sober, at least you can have some accountability, right?
Yeah, and we want to thank Chad for the $5 super chat. Happy New Year. Thanks for the great content. More to discuss in 2026. Absolutely, sir. We're not going anywhere.
I just want to add one quick thing, and then my voice should probably be finished, is that I agree with you, Ariel, that Seiko is very good at filling in the price gap, but what they're not good at doing is providing any more value.
No, and that's where others come in. They can do it when they want to, but it's not their business model. The business model is to undercut a leadership position, and the way that you make money doing it is by having a lower price. So Seiko is very clever at putting just as much as they need to into a product, so they can charge a lower amount but offer a simulated experience. When it comes to creating experience you want on their own, they're not quite as good at that, and that is one of the areas where the Japanese brands have been traditionally weaker than the Europeans.
Blake, go ahead.
Yeah, I'm curious to get some insight. Obviously, if you look at independent micro brands who have built their entire customer base within a certain price segment, and you start to see them climbing the price ladder, like, why is it that they're chasing this, to this dollar value? Like, obviously, they're trying to make more money, but, at some point, you kind of leave your old customers in the dust.
So this is a very interesting thing you bring up. It happens a lot. There's more than one reason. They're all strong reasons. I'll give you sort of 2 or 3 of the main reasons. One, and this is for me the most interesting from an intellectual perspective, is that you start a brand to make the watches you want. And you begin very humbly. The prices are low because you're afraid of charging more. You're just getting started. And you develop a following at that price level. But ultimately, the founder always wanted to have a nicer watch. They're making a watch for himself or herself. They're making what they want to wear. And their tastes are usually already higher than the price points they're starting at. So you have this weird tendency, whereas with each subsequent model, they continue to move closer and closer to the direction of the product they want, which inevitably leads to it getting more expensive, which leads to its abandoning the customer base that it found at a particular price point. So they don't really understand this is what's going on. They mostly say it as like, I started this brand to make what I want. I'm getting closer. I'm getting closer. And yes, they think they're making a significantly better watch, and it's justified to spend more or to charge more for it. And that's maybe true, but it also does not sort of take into consideration the fact that customers, as I write a lot, are very price loyal and price conscious. They have a particular price point that they feel they want to spend for a particular type of item, and they don't want to spend more. That's not why they got into the brand in the first place. So that's one reason, is that tendency to make a nicer watch that sort of they want. And sometimes it also has to do with ego. The longer you run a brand, the more you want your watch to be nicer, to be higher quality. A lot of people who make a lot of money are also afraid that their watches aren't perceived as being as nice as possible, by their peers, right? It's sort of like they're mostly at conventions and stuff. They're like, oh man, my watches are not as nice as these. Yeah, but they're a lot cheaper and more people are buying them, right? So sometimes they get stuck in this ivory tower where they're trying to compete better in these trade shows, but ultimately the consumer is looking for something different. Another reason has to do with the fact that a lot of these small brands are really comfortable only producing a certain number of watches per year. They can only sell so much. They can only have so many relationships with consumers. They can only ship so much. And they recognize that they don't want to make more watches and try to sell more watches to sustain their business to grow. So in order to make more money, they just charge more for the same thing because they want to stay complacent in their comfort zone. And it's not that that's good or bad. That's understandable. But it's one of the reasons why prices go up, because they're trying to make their businesses less dependent on them. They want to hire more people. They want to do marketing, and that money can only come by having more money. And if they don't want to increase the volume of watches, then the only way to do it is by increasing the retail price. And the third reason is similar, and it has to do with investors. Investors often have performance requirements, and brands who are not able to sell the volume that they thought or that they promised to investors then have to figure out some way of getting money. And so they really just try to increase the price point for the people who are buying, which again, they don't understand as being really problematic because it makes those people, flee to other brands. So I hope that explains it.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you for the 556 super chat, Mobster. Mitch, I bet you could go for a hot bowl of matzo ball soup right now. Ariel, love to see you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Interesting point from GMT. Seiko is at a $5 super chat. Thank you so much, sir. Seiko is good at creating watches, but not good at creating status. How important is status to maybe us in the watch community and also kind of the general public? How important is it?
I think it's a very personal thing. Everyone has to decide for themselves the volume of status, the type of status. I think for me, status is about expression. Everybody is in this hobby for some type of form of self-expression, but it's a very personal thing. And we should not be trying to emulate how other people express themselves. That's one of the reasons that I find it very weird to see people, and again, if you guys do it, I'm sorry, but like watch interviews with other collectors about what they bought, because those watches are so personal to their experience. There's no way of transferring that vicariously to someone else. Like, you didn't have that anniversary. You didn't get that gift. You didn't buy that because you had this experience and loved it. So I think everyone needs to recognize that they're collecting watches as a way of self-expression, and to do what feels natural and pure for them. Don't feel pressured to make expression that you don't want, and choose those watches that allow you to express your tastes, your personality, your mood, your way. So that's how I identify status. Some people want to say, hey, look, I have a bunch of money. Some people want to say, hey, look how refined my tastes and awareness of art are. So it's very high, but it's also extremely personal.
Yeah, we do unboxings, but we never say buy this or buy this because I have it, or what you see on some other channels. Well,
there's a lot of it out there, I understand.
Yeah.
Except for Blake and his doxes. But other than that,
doxes are cool.
Yeah, we want to thank Tiger Tail for the $10 super chat. Thanks for doing this, Ariel. Love your weekly podcast.
Thank you.
You have a couple of weekly podcasts. You've got the Blog to Watch Weekly, and you've got Superlative.
Yep.
I found it really interesting a couple of weeks, I guess 3 weeks ago now, when you were invited into Jay Leno's garage to not talk about cars, but talk about watches, which was fascinating. I didn't even know the guy was into watches.
It's a relatively new hobby of his. I mean, he's known about watches, but when you live a life where hobbies are interesting to you, I think what ends up happening is you have different phases. You have new hobbies you pick up, you get excited by it, you put certain hobbies down. I think Jay Leno is someone who's made an entire career about being a professional hobbyist, and that's one of the reasons I admire him. He's made that dream seem like a reality, and I myself, in a weird way, have made a career out of a hobby. So I really admire him for that. We could have talked about cars. He picked up watches as sort of a hobby that fits into his other interests of mechanical things. He's a man that loves machines. He's not into status. I think the way he would describe is he likes serious machines, like machines that are serious, not silly. Like, again, that's really the word that he uses, and I totally agree. It's a perfect way of explaining it. And he likes serious watches, and he likes serious watch mechanisms, and he likes systems that are seriously designed to have improvements. And he's curious about these things, because when looking from the outside, you're like, that automaton seems complicated, but does it help watches be better watches? Or that escapement system, is it just to be different, or does it actually help? And he's someone that has these types of, I think, important curiosities. Getting answers to those questions is really, really tough. Really, really tough. And so I think that's what's actually maintained his interest, is there's all this weird stuff out there, and he's just like really curious. Like, how does it work? What does it do? What if it actually solves any problems, rather than just be, some type of an exotic performance? And in cars, you have the same thing. Some cars are genuine improvements over others, and others are just circus acts.
And I could see from his racing and stuff that he's done in the past and everything, and his love for motorcycles and cars. It's about stripping down the vehicle to the bare minimum, getting the most out of it, making it serious. And then he walks into watches, and it's like, oh, you have somebody that, clings a gong on there. You like you said, an automaton, like, okay, so what does that do? You know, it's got to be definitely a foreign thing to him, because what he's run into before is all it's purpose made. You know, this is why we did this.
And he loves handmade. He loves, you know, the idea of coach built, these like high end types of machines that require a lot of effort. You know, in the world of engineering and things like that, certain types of mechanisms never make it to any type of mainstream because they're difficult to manufacture in any volume, but they can be really cool and exotic. And he just loves stuff like that. He genuinely likes watches. And I know a lot of people like him who stumble upon the hobby, maybe at a point in their life where it seems like they should have been in it for a long time, but they eventually figure it out. That's the beauty of the hobby. You can be, you know, at the latter parts of your life and pick it up and get excited about something brand new, or you can be in it since you were very young and it continues to bring you a lot of joy. Again, it's just it's remarkable that the magnetism that this hobby has.
Yeah, and there's always kind of been that connection between cars and watches. There are a lot of car people who are watch people, and there are a lot of watch people who are car people.
Yep.
It's I don't know if it's strange, or maybe it is the love for the mechanical and all things mechanical, which both fits with watches, at least some watches, and cars as well.
Yeah. If you have what I call the collecting gene, then you tend to be involved in collecting various things. And so there is a big overlap between watches and cars, and watches and fountain pens and you know, fountain pens and cigars and pocket knives. I mean, you go to a watch show and there'll be somebody selling fountain pens and vice versa.
Want to thank Anteater for the $10 super chat. I'll catch the replay in the morning. Happy New Year's. Thank you, Anteater. We appreciate you tuning in all the way from across the pond as well. It's late where you are, so glad you could at least watch a little bit of the live stream. We had a comment up here, and I think this is kind of interesting from Ryan. Citizen doesn't get enough credit for their horological accomplishments. Citizen and Seiko, with their diversified portfolio, will never be on the high status level watch snobs also mock Grand Seiko. Do you find that, Ariel, as far as Grand Seiko goes?
The people mock it?
Yeah, watch snobs. Oh, it's not Swiss, it's not this, it's not that, whatever.
I don't think anybody mocks it for its inherent value and quality. I think everyone recognizes that do a really good job. I think it's easy to laugh at some of the approach to marketing, some of their sort of expectations of the market. I think there's some silly sides there where they've had some unreasonable expectations, but each individual product is very well made. It's hard to deny that.
Yeah, and incredibly not only well made, well finished. The movements are spectacular. It's the only company with spring drive. I mean, and they invented it.
Yeah, again, every part of the watch is well done and a lot of care. They might be very expensive compared to how they used to be. They might be overly silly with being inspired by what we joke about is what they see out their window. They might not need as many limited editions. They might not need to you see sort of an abstract dial and be like, oh, this is what you're supposed to see. When you're like, no, I don't see that. But again, these are no company is above a little bit of mocking. I think that none of them should take themselves so seriously. I think all of them have funny things about their personalities that they can and maybe should laugh at.
People don't seem to hold on to them either.
I will go to my grave saying that if I want a nice Toyota, I do not buy a Grand Toyota. If I elect it, I hate the name Grand Seiko.
Coming from the man who sells Toyota.
I remember when I first bought mine, they said Grand Seiko and Seiko on the same dial.
Yeah.
I was like, why does it have to say?
Why would you say that?
When it comes to Japanese and labeling and terms, you're never going to win. Just never going to happen.
You mean you don't like the Bulgari bezels that say Bulgari like 8,000 times? Is that your thing?
It's sold a lot of Bulgaris for them.
Hey, at least it's only one name and not two.
I'm super curious, and this is more for a selfish question, but I started. I'm doing talking about watches on the internet, kind of like you, similarly, and I'm where you were 10 years ago, 15 years ago, whatever. I'm way behind you, but But anyways, I only gravitate and only talk about what I like to talk about. So I'm starting to realize, like, as a creator, people are trying to get me to talk about shit that I don't want to talk about. And so how has that changed your perspective on watches and the industry as a whole? Because, I'm sure, I mean, you're the default that I go to for media, watch media. And you've got a lot of great contributors like Jake Whitkin. Awesome person. And so how has that changed your perspective on watches? Because I can't imagine myself talking about things that I don't like, but I try to put myself in somebody else's shoes. So, like, how do you kind of juggle that?
Is the question about how to stay objective?
Kind of, but it's, you're obviously looking at it. This is your business. This is your job. Like, you employ people, like, but yeah. So how do you stay objective? For sure. It's the simplification of it.
Well, I think it boils down to the fact that not being objective never seemed like an option. The idea that we would say something is good because someone paid us to do so was never part of the conversation or founding idea. There's been a lot of businesses that formed with that very notion. We'll make money by telling someone that we'll promote it for them and say it's good. This is people who maybe form their idea of internet business as a result of seeing the influence culture. That's not me. For me, I come from an era where there's a very specific line, literally a line between editorial and advertising. I think that people respect that editorial needs to be supported by advertising, and they just want transparency. They like advertising. They just want to know what they're looking at. Yeah. I think that deception is what consumers are trying to avoid. They're not concerned about seeing advertising. Advertising, oh, I don't want people to know it's an ad. I'm like, why? That's when they'll pay attention to it. Consumers just respect them enough to tell them what they're looking at. That's okay. So for me, the editorial was always supposed to represent honesty and what we actually felt, because that was the only way I thought anybody would ever read it. Why would anybody want to read some type of false account? When I read something from someone, I can tell very fast if the author actually thinks that. It's not very difficult if you're paying any attention. To have a whole business model that you're trying to deceive people, that surprised me that worked, honestly. I may not represent the mainstream, but the idea that there's entire publications whose business model is, we'll pretend that we like you, doesn't seem to work. My philosophy, which again is not necessarily always been great for money, but it goes to a brand and say, like, we like what you do. I think your stuff is great. If more people knew about it, if we could tell more stories about it, we could share our passion, explain to other people what we thought was great about it, and more people knew about that, we made some content around it, that will be good for you. That's really always been my perspective. I cannot go to a company who I fundamentally don't like and say, you know what we can do, help you sell watches. I can't do it. I ask myself, if there's 20 or 30% of people on the blog to watch that might like it, that's like the baseline. We have to have at least some of the audience who could plausibly be into this. And I'm very honest sometimes. I can see how this might be great if you're just getting into watches. That's not me anymore, so I'm not into it, but I could see someone liking it. If I can't step into someone's shoes and feel that they would wear it and be happy about it, I just decide to skip it. So I understand the allure of this, but we exist in what I call the opinion mercenary economy. And it's a big draw. When you look at social media, you might think that's the way to do it. But as a content creator, you very quickly realize, like, I was sold a bunch of lies. Like, that's not how this works. That's not how you make money. It's not good that YouTube itself, to make money, says, go out and make a brand deal. They don't even explain what that means. They're like, literally, go sell your opinion for views. That's what we want you to do. That's screwed up. But people trust Google. But Google is telling people to do things that is not only unethical, but in a lot of instances, probably flat out illegal in terms of fraud, right? Like, and that's the best they could do to incentivize people to make content for the platform. That's not healthy. And I know that, and I don't have to pretend that that's okay. So I understand that it's a free market, and there's going to be a lot of entrepreneurs, and there's been so many people in the last 20 years that have tried to come and be media in the watch space. Many of them have left because they haven't been able to make enough money that they feel they could, and they've been pressured into trying to make money while leaving their morals and scruples, like, on the table. and then they do that for a few years, and then they don't succeed, they leave. So you have this tragedy where this industry attracts potential content creators and media who try to be honest at first, then out of frustration, desperation, basically will do anything, and then they basically create a bunch of bad content, and then they depart, and the message to other people is, oh, this is the way to do it. So it's sort of this really bad spiraling cycle where the watch industry benefits, but the content creators don't. The community definitely doesn't. And it requires, I guess, a lot of maturity and awareness to avoid this, because it is going against the grain.
We want to thank Silicon Hairspring for $5. Got to get my super chat in for the last show of the year. Wish I could get over this flu. That would be helpful too. Happy New Year to Ariel and the best Tuesday crew to ever do it. Thank you, Silicon. We appreciate that. I guess it is, since it is the last show of the year, I would be remiss and not ask you, did you have a favorite watch or maybe few watches that came out this year, since you went to all the shows and saw them all?
So we had like a bunch of articles that we published that was essentially variations on that. The most worn, the favorite. The team likes to do it. It's good for views. I have a sort of structural problem with choosing favorites. I don't like doing it. I feel like if I had a favorite watch, what business do I have exploring any others? Right? Like, hobby's done. I found the grail. Like, I don't want to find a grail. I want to keep searching and hunting. And in general in life, you don't have to choose any type of favorite. What an arbitrary tragedy. If you choose one outfit, one food, one person to look at forever, like why would we have to want to choose these things? That's like being in prison. Okay, so this idea of favorites is for me limiting, and I understand that it tends to be a friendly question, but I see it as like a stressful burden. Why would I have to choose this? You know what I mean? Like, it's like telling someone, they're like, Ariel, what watch should I buy for myself? I'm like, the one you like, pal.
Yeah.
You know?
I think people, when they ask that question, it's more like your watch of the moment, right? Like right now, like
cheating. They're just trying to get a shortcut. They're like, what watch should I care about? It's up to you.
We want to welcome JJ in. He says that might be harder than picking a favorite panelist.
No, I'm here.
Yeah, Luch is here, so discussion complete.
JJ is our fearless leader. So
yes. So when you look at all these watches and go to all of these shows, is there ever oh my God, I've got to go here again, or do you look forward to it every time?
So I think what keeps me coming back is the strong emotions I get when handling a watch I like. I do have watches I like more than others. You can't really predict it. It's not the same, and I wouldn't try to compare it, but you know, like when you eat really good food, you're like, that's just not good, but like it's sort of this, oh wow, a lot of my senses are tantalized at the same time. Very often the watch industry does not fail to show me a few watches at these shows that I hold, and I think to myself, that's just so satisfying. Whether it's, I love how the movement works, I like how it feels, I like the shape, I like the story behind it, sometimes all the above. But I look at these things and I think to myself, wow, I'm really glad I got to feel that way. I probably can't own it. I probably will never actually see this watch again because some of these are so rare. But I'm so glad I had this moment with it. Hopefully I captured it on camera. It's kind of like a little high. And if the watch shows stopped delivering that to me, if I went and I just didn't see enough watches I liked, I'd probably stop going back. But on a very basic level, watches give me like a dopamine hit, especially if it's a very, very good one. And I think the more refined your tastes are, when you find that good one, it's just like that much more satisfying. You know, like people are into wine, have like that really good wine. They're like, oh my God, this is what I've been looking for. I kind of have my version of that. And again, if the shows stopped consistently delivering that at least a few times each time I went, I might go less. Yeah.
Is there a particular show that you look forward to? I know that a lot of the guys on your weekly show mentioned, you know, how much they loved Dubai Watch Week. And what a great experience that is every other year. And, you know, some said, you know, maybe hopefully we can get it every year. It seems like not as many look forward to Watches and Wonders, for example, every year. What is there a favorite? Do you have a favorite show, or are they all kind of blend into each other, or what?
Look, when I first started going to watch shows, none of them were comfortable or fun. There were fun parts to it, like the evenings or hanging out with people. But I don't know if any of you have a history of going to like big trade shows, but big trade shows are like these giant, intimidating, uncomfortable things. You have to stay nearby in usually not great conditions. There's a lot of walking, a lot of, small talk. Like trade shows have never really been fun. No one's like, I just can't wait to go to this trade show. Like no one really likes trade shows, and watch trade shows were not that different. Basel World was even harder because it wasn't just a trade show, but it was like it was like this out of the way part of the world in a city that had no interest in hosting trade shows at all. And they didn't have enough hotels. So just like getting there and staying there was difficult. And so what you have is people have these like shared struggles. Like it's all hard to get here and afford to be here. And once we're here, we can all laugh about it. That's sort of what made it nice. The idea that there's a Dubai watch is a very modern phenomenon, right? It's not a new thing. It was born out of an era of collectors events where enthusiasts, right? If you weren't in the watch industry and you went to a trade show, you're like, what the hell? I'm never going back to this horrible, uncomfortable thing. So watch trade shows were being influenced by collectors groups because Dubai Watch was always supposed to be appealing to collectors before the brands, who knew that you couldn't get away with this uncomfortable nonsense. So it's really that the enthusiasts made it so that anywhere that they're expected to show up can't be that horrible. So it's not that I like look forward to going to the shows. I already know it's okay. I have to mentally prepare for it. I say things to myself like I'm preparing to climb a mountain. So I go hiking a lot in the weeks beforehand because I'm going to be carrying a lot of gear and walking a lot. I think to myself, okay, you're going to your annual or your biannual sentence in minimum security Swiss prison, right? Like you have some rights, but not a lot. It's an athletic and emotional endurance game. It's really what they are. And anyone that says otherwise is just lying to you.
Yeah, and one thing too to look at when you go to these shows, especially for you, is that it's part of the job. You're there to work. You're not necessarily there to have fun. And I mean, when I was in radio and did a lot of traveling for work, there was, oh, did you like this place? Wasn't this place great? Did you go to this restaurant? No, I worked. So that's kind of the way it is for you too, going to these shows.
I don't party. I don't, when I was younger, look, I started this when I was 25 and I started going to these shows when I was like 27, 28. Of course I was going out. Other people were, it was a different time. I was not a huge partier, but it was more interesting. These days, there aren't other people celebrating around. And I just go, I do my meetings. I spend time with my team. I take my pictures. I still have other duties to do. I have all my same work responsibilities, but I got to go to meetings all day and also lead the team. So these events are not for everyone. And even the collectors that go are like, oh my God, this is hard. The small, intimate enthusiast events that are done locally in people's cities, like stick with that. Don't ever think you need to go to one of these shows.
Yeah.
I think
go ahead, Blake, and then Jen.
Oh, I was just going to say, like, when I've been for the past 3 years to Watches and Wonders, and brands have sponsored me, and I've looked at it from both perspectives because I come in as a collector, right? Somebody who's passionate about watches, and I see people who it's like going to Disneyland, but like there's no fast pass, right? Like, and you can only ride the rides once, and just seeing people queue up just to see, the same stuff. It doesn't look very appealing from my perspective, and I don't know why anybody would go.
I don't really say this a lot, but I honestly put up with a lot and do a lot of unglamorous work to show people things they wouldn't otherwise see. Definitely not get the opinion. I never really thought about it that way, but I do save people a lot of trouble. Like there are glamorous parts to my job. Absolutely. I like a lot of the travel, especially when there's trips and things like that. But the trade shows themselves, it's not like this privilege. No one can be like, oh, I really want to go. They should be thankful that I'm doing a lot of the hard work for them, honestly.
Yep. I'm with you. Jen.
One thing I wanted to ask is, so I I was a mechanic for a while, and I worked at a shop that we worked on exotics and all that. So I got to drive stuff that I normally would never be able to drive. And after a while, I liked it because I got to get that out of my system, and then it was, okay, what do I really like? Do you find that with what you do?
Oh yeah. I mean, there's all these hype watches out there, and I know which ones are, authentically hyped and which is just, a bunch of silly rumors that it's going to make you feel this way. There's this weird thing these days where people buy a watch and they're upset for a very interesting reason, because it doesn't live up to the high expectations the internet set for them. This watch is going to change your life. It's going to make you a magnet to the opposite sex. Everyone's going to respect you, right? Like, they're led to believe all these things that people will feel, these powers they'll get. And then they buy the watch, and yeah, it's a nice watch, but the Patek isn't going to elevate your socioeconomic status.
Right.
In fact, you've just maybe lowered one because you bought it. It doesn't work that way. So I think that having the personal experience with them allows me to understand, just like with the cars, like which ones are a hassle, which ones are actually comfortable. They're all pretty, right? But beyond that, there's still a lot of differences.
Yeah.
Certain ones are made better than others, and you find your own taste. Like, I like a lot of finishing. That's nice. I like legibility, like, a lot. I'm not as weird about sizes. Some people are really, I can only be this size. I'm more flexible in sizes, but I definitely have things I like. And when it comes down to it, I just like a lot of human effort.
Yeah.
The more like a human being did something, especially if they like by their hand, they like touched it, they polished it. It's not saying machine-made watches aren't nice, and sometimes they're great, but there's always usually a hand effort in there as well. We like buying human attention. It's like this idea that this person who is a master in their craft spent dozens, maybe hundreds of hours on this object that you get to wear. Like, you get to own that labor, that refinement, the beauty they're able to create. Like, that's a very powerful feeling. And some watches will give it to you and some don't. And it's not always related to price. It's related to a lot of other different types of things.
We want to thank Mobster for the $5 super chat. Ariel, what watch did you wear the most in 2025? And what is on your wrist tonight?
Again, it's a totally fair question. And in those articles in the blog to watch, we actually answered the watches we wore the most. I struggle to answer these. It's sort of like a range of things. Remember, I'm reviewing watches a lot. Yeah. So I don't get to wear the watches I own per se as much as watches I have to sort of review and think about. So the watches I wear the most are the watches I'm reviewing, which is what you want me to be wearing, right? And tonight I'm wearing a watch called the Piguet from a small independent brand that I did a podcast with earlier, called Centorse. And it's an enthusiast watch, but it's a particularly nicely done one. It's people that like really, really cared about the details. Again, it's from afar, people walking by wouldn't see it. But if you like compare it to like 100 or 200 other $1,000 dive watches, this one will just like edge them out a little bit. And so I thought the people behind it were really nice. I like the story, and it's just in the scope of indie dive watches, this would beat a lot of others because of the effort they put into it. And again, it's not the handmadeness of the watch, even though I like that it's assembled in America, but it's that these people like slaved over this design for months, I'm sure. And I appreciate that part.
Yeah, it's interesting you say that. Today I was watching a channel called Chronoglide with a guy who is over in the Netherlands. He runs a watch repair shop, and he had a Vacheron on his bench today for their 5th year anniversary of having their channel. And as he's going through this watch, when he's breaking it down, this watch actually had black polishing between the teeth on the gears.
Yeah, really impressive.
Like it's, when you see that, you're like, and nobody was going to see it. Like, it didn't have an open case. He like, unless you open that up, and not many people are going to be brave enough to open the back of their watch. You would never see that, but it's stunning to see the, like you said, the effort that people have put into some of these things.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of the expensive watches have a huge amount of effort. There's not a lot of fraud, like you're spending $1 million and then you open the watch and there's an ETA inside. Like, that doesn't really exist.
Has before though.
Maybe. It's rare.
So our friend Nate, Ariel, do you have a favorite watch brand and why is it Cartier? No. That's
Guessing
his
that guy
favorite
likes
watch
Cartier
brand.
a lot.
Oh God, yes.
Nate,
Yes, he
Nate
has the
collected
Infinity
all of
Gauntless.
the. Yeah, he collected all of the Santos Dumonts from Watches and Wonders this year.
Like the Affinity collection, the Gauntlet collection is what we call it.
Cartier is a great brand. I have no issues with it. I own some Cartier myself. I like to think that, like many other brands, I enjoyed it before it was popular. I like that every couple of years Cartier just comes up with a new shape. Maybe they also come out with a shape, but like, what other brand consistently comes up with brand new watches all the time? They're just new shapes, new ideas, and they'll just discontinue if it sucks. Remember the Clé? It was a good idea. Didn't sell well. Okay. Didn't stop them from making other new stuff all the time. So the fact that they push forward, and again, I don't even care if it's new movements, but just like new dials, new shapes, new concepts. No big company, in my opinion, is more prolific than Cartier at doing that and doing it well.
I think
so.
Nate
There you
has
go,
one of
Nate.
those.
He probably does. He probably does or did. We want to thank Chris, DC Chris. Great content tonight. Thank you to the panel. Thank you, Chris, for the $20 super chat. We will get you in the race as well. So speaking of watches made in the U.S., do you see that as more and more companies are going to try to at least assemble in the U.S.? I think we've seen a little bit of growth in that over the last few years.
Yeah, it's a big topic that I've been involved with for at least 15 years now. And that is this idea that people want to return some or all of the watchmaking process to the United States in one form or another. A lot of people have tried. There's been little efforts here and there, small shop operations. I remember several years ago, I was hired by Timex to help talk about their product called American Documents. Kind of a weird name, but it was supposed to be this made in America watch. The movement was not made in America. They didn't even try to do that part. They just wanted to have all the other parts made in America because Timex had not made a watch in America since I think the 50s or something like that. They had begun making them in the Philippines after World War II for interesting reasons that we can talk about another time related to the war effort. We'll put it that way. So they tried to make this watch in America. It was very, very difficult. And I've seen a lot of other, mom and pop shops try to do different parts of it. You can get certain things made here, but the full stack of components is hard. But we're closer than ever now, and we have, operations like Josh Shapiro's facility here in Los Angeles that he claims he'll start making his own hairsprings and stuff like that, which is very exciting because that's really one of those types of springs are very difficult to make in any type of volume. They're very precise parts to make. You can make sapphire crystals here. They're not cheap. Nobody wants to use, Corning Gorilla Glass for a watch crystal other than Apple. So I think that I've been quite surprised. Now, the interesting thing is that the thing that has created such a push in the United States to make watches here is more related to being forced to do so. It has been the disability to work well with, especially the Europeans. See, a lot of the American entrepreneurs would have loved to just have their stuff made in Switzerland, but the Swiss is threatened by it, and that's a whole other topic. They wouldn't do business with them. They wouldn't sell to them at the right price. They wouldn't do anything for them. So the industry here, it's less about, wow, it would be so nice for it to be made in America. That's actually a secondary concern. It's they won't make it for us at all. And if we're going to make it, we need to make it here so we can at least charge the money we want for it. And I think it really is based upon the fact that these other countries are just saying no for what I think is foolish reasons. And Americans, being as many other countries are, trying to set it up locally. It goes in with other trends about bringing back manufacturing and artisanship to America. So it ties into a lot of narratives we kind of already like and are already talking about. And there's, in Ohio, for example, there's some fantastic companies, multiple ones that are working on various elements of that, which I think is fascinating. What will it ultimately lead to? I don't know. If it leads to better watches being made at better prices for our market, that's fantastic. Could we ever beat Asia? No, especially if Asia were more aligned, right? Asia is not going to create markets, but will respond to it. So if suddenly there's this amazing made in America watch industry again, they'll just be like, oh, how can we, How can we get in on that and undercut it? And not a bad thing. That's good. But right now they're not aligned for that. The Europeans will mostly always be protective. They were protective, at the end of the 19th century. They're protective at the end of the 20th century, and in the 21st century, they'll continue to be protective. Whether or not there's money to be made, whether or not it's a good idea business-wise, they will continue to operate protectively. So that is why, in a lot of ways, the American watch industry is growing, is because by the numbers, most of the world's watch collectors are in the United States. We're sick of the high prices as we've been talking about. We're sick of brands that seem out of touch with who we are and what we expect. And so we're just been forced to do it ourselves, which is an interesting thing, but honestly, a missed opportunity for a lot of the Europeans, in my opinion.
We've got I'm sorry, $10 super chat from Thelonious Monk. Ariel, can you get Peter Braun on your pod? He publishes a book every year since 2001 that catalogs watch prices across many brands. Would love to hear you pick his brain about pricing trends.
Yeah. Yeah. I guess I just haven't had him on yet. I know Peter, and that would be great. My show, honestly, it's not like a meritocracy. It's like, who do I remember? And I know all these people. So I have no problem with that. I will discuss with him. I know the publication you're talking about. Yeah, there's no reason why I can't.
And we've got George Varghese in the house. Ariel, is IWC a brand that one must avoid at all costs? Asking for a friend. No, you're asking for yourself.
Is that
George
the
is
brand
not a
this
big
guy
fan
doesn't
of
like?
IWC. No, he doesn't like it at all.
There's so many watch brands that you can convince yourself one doesn't exist, and you can live a peaceful rest of your life. If you don't like IWC, just erase all its identity, block it. I don't know what you want to do, but you're okay. That's fine. You can just pretend like it's not a thing.
George, IWC for life. I will always be here to remind you about IWC.
Yes, and George gets very irritated when we unbox IWCs on this channel or any other channel.
I'm super curious, Ariel, because you were talking a lot, and it seems like you've been on the ground here trying to help create a market, or at least an industry of manufacturing of watches here in America. Do you feel like there's a market for American-made watches overseas, like beyond our own borders here?
It's a good question. I don't really know. I mean, I'm not always sure what the market for American watches in America is. In a lot of places, they don't necessarily want products made there. Like if you go to China and be like, you want a made in China watch? You're like, not really. Like that's not that exciting to them. And to a lot of Americans, like, you want a made in America watch? You're like, why? Like, maybe, I don't know. It really depends on how good it is. There's not that many places around the world right now that like really want to buy American culture. There was for a long time. Our entertainment and our fashion and our clothing was highly exportable. Now I think like the most popular thing we export is like our junk food, right? Like, and that's not something that I think we should be particularly proud of. So in certain places like Japan, yeah, they love Americana, and that's great. But like, can you see like American watch brands like doing well in Russia 20 years from now? Like, I don't think so.
George has a quick follow-up on the IWC question. What is your favorite IWC? The Big Pilot, son of Big Pilot, great-grandpa of Big Pilot, or FMD Pilot? Asking for a friend. Jeez, George.
I do like a lot of IWCs, but I will say that contrary to what IWC wants, I don't care about the Portuguese. I refuse to call it the Portugueser because that sounds worse to me than the Portuguese. And when they changed the name, I made a decision. I'm never going to call it the Portugueser.
Yeah.
It's only for old people from Portugal.
It's a fine one. I do think that their Pilot's watches are some of the best. The new Ingenieur I happen to like a lot. I've liked some of their weird watches from the past. But yeah, I think when it comes to just sort of a Pilot watch, they do a fantastic job. But the Ocean 2000 that they made for Porsche design, at least historically, is still one of my favorites.
Go ahead, Jim.
One question I have. So there is a motorcycle company called Janus that is based out of Goshen, Indiana. And one of the reasons why the owner set up shop there was because there was a plethora of machining and fabrication and a lot of the stuff that he needed parts wise to source for these bikes that was literally made within 100 miles of the shop. And he said he looked all over the country for something like that and other places, and Goshen was the only place he could find it. They've really kind of been a holdout. And I wonder, do you see that being the issue in America with watches? Is logistically, it doesn't make sense because nothing is close enough to be able to do stuff like that.
I think logistics has to do with it. I don't know that the proximity is as important anymore. You know, shipping costs are way down compared to how they were historically. And the wonderful thing about the United States is you can ship high value things within the country very safely. And there's a lot of countries where that's not true at all. So I think a lot of it has to do with the viability of these businesses making watch parts versus something else.
Yeah.
If you want to get into the machinist business, you probably care more about producing components than watches. You want to sell volume. If you're a machinist, you want to put the lowest effort in to get the highest, profit out. You want to change your setup and your assembly line as little as possible. And you want to have like the greatest tolerances as possible. Of course, the client wants the lowest tolerance as possible. So it's this weighing of factors. How difficult is this versus how much money I'm going to get out of it? So watch parts are low volume by design, high precision, and everywhere. They're most annoying freaking things to make. Clients need very exacting things, which makes sense. But the producers of these parts hate that. It's so annoying. They're like, it's the right shape, but it's not finished correctly. Our machines can't even do that. Or that takes 8 times as long. At this price, you're crazy. So the problem becomes if you need this level of quality at these low volumes, are you willing to spend this enormous amount of money per an item?
Okay.
Other businesses are set up to do that. In Switzerland and Asia, they already have it all figured out. They have the hands factory. They've been doing it. They don't have to figure out how to do it. They already know how to. They have a leg up on you. So others, if motivated, can undercut you. There's no safety in it. You put, $50 million into a parts factory here in the United States, and then suddenly another country decides, oh yeah, we actually do want to compete with you. Yeah. Rather than not selling to you like we would before in Switzerland, we're just going to decide, no problem. We'll sell to your clients. So as a business owner, it's just headaches galore. Yeah. Unless these parts can be like 3D printed, which they really can't, or we have some type of ability to have drastically lower manufacturing costs, which is not really on the horizon for all the things necessary in a watch movement, though some things arguably are going to be easier to manufacture. This is not going to change, and it's not going to be economically viable for a factory. That's why the brands vertically integrate, because no supplier ever wants to put up with their nonsense. But can you imagine a company in the United States setting up shop to manufacture each and every one of the components for an entire wristwatch? You're in hundreds of millions of dollars before you sold a single timepiece. Who's going to do that? What person, unless they're highly passionate or incredibly insane, is going to do that?
Right. Well, and a second part to that, I know that CNC has come a long way to the point where they can do some of the finishing already on some of the parts with the CNC. I'm not saying it's great, but it's an option. As that technology develops over time, do you see that being a possibility of it coming back to America as it becomes more affordable?
All I can do is based on what I say. I'm not a specialist in this area, okay?
Right.
This is a very special area of CNC components and tools and things like that. This is its own microengineering and polishing, whole industry. I don't want to speak for it. All I can do is tell you what I've seen with my eyes.
Yeah.
And I've seen people try their best to do it with machines and fail. I've seen how much better it is by hand. I've seen blending of the two. I've seen the most motivated and well-equipped people in the world attempt all of this. I know what it looks like to have a movement in China that has machined Geneva stripes, or if they're a low quality machine. The problem is the human eye can tell very quickly. And also from a manufacturing perspective, and when it comes to small tolerances, it makes a big difference mechanically. If you don't deburst something, if it's not the right shape, all these things can drastically change how watch movement can work. So I know what's at stake, what needs to improve. I keep hearing from people all the time, you can't do that with CNC. You can't. They think you can, but you can't. And ultimately, the people who think they can. I've met so many people who are these very confident, but maybe overly enthusiastic and egotistical young machinists. They're like, I could do that. I can look at it on a screen and I can tell you could do that. Well, then they fail. They fail all the time because it's a lot harder than that. So all these armchair experts who like went to school or read the manual think they can do it end up being utterly, utterly humbled like every single time. So it could happen with advances in technology. It's probably something related to 3D printing. I don't think it's more advanced CNC machines, but right now I'd say it's still an uphill battle.
If you could 3D print a silicone hairspring, oh my gosh. You would change things for sure.
Yeah, you would. That would be, 3D print silicone parts would be fantastic. Again, that's not where we're at yet.
Right.
Another $5 from George Varghese. Ariel, are you saying no one really owns an IWC? No, what we're saying is, much like Patek, you never own an IWC. You just preserve it for the next generation.
You're just renting it from the service shop, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that too. So go ahead.
I'm super curious, and this is something that I think about pretty much every single day, like the downfall of the watch industry, all the shortcomings of the watch industry. I know it's like a very like doom and gloom perspective, but
I am the world's most authority on that.
I'm super curious to get your perspective, to pick your brain on what do you think is going to be the downfall of the entire industry.
I mean, this industry has bounced back from downfall so many times, right? It has been able to recover, pick up. I like to say every time there's a brand revival, there had to be a brand death first, right? Like someone had to go. There's a stickiness to this industry, and it's a weird one. There's always like a bunch of ways the industry could fail at any given moment. It's never one factor, right? You look at the quartz crisis. Was it just quartz movements? No. It was so much more complicated than that. People were buying watches like crazy. So what you have is this interesting scenario where business models within the watch industry fail while the general interest in watches remains high. Maybe no one cares about handmade watches in Switzerland, but they love smartwatches made in China, right? It's just about what the consumer wants and making enough of it and marketing it to them and things like that. So consumer demand for gadgets on the wrist is perennial. It will never go away. Our watch is going to be made through this cultural lens with the infrastructure based in this region of the world. Maybe, maybe not. The United States, as I said, used to be the world's biggest manufacturer of wristwatches until it wasn't. So it's unclear to me exactly what's going to ultimately doom it, but it's always clear that the industry is hanging on multiple precipices at any given time. From their high prices to the collapse of luxury demand to their own greed and lack of sharing. Look, the watch industry is like a colonialist empire. They're like, America, that's a good place to set up a colony. Not like, we'll do business there. Let's make people rich there. No, it's how can we take money and not give a lot back to them? That's the mentality. And when times are good and they feel they can do that, you see like all these brands coming out of Switzerland and this imperialist agenda. When the economy gets worse, they just retract like a turtle. They're not like, okay, guys, let's figure out how to do this. They just disappear or raise their prices until they can't get away with it anymore, right? So if you're seeing the potential of the industry as it is departing, you're right, it could. It's super fragile. But then you look at this other side of the industry with the enthusiasts, where you got all these people lining up to buy, like, honestly, like a boring $800 watch because it was like, promoted on social media. Like, oh my God, like that's not hard to get people to buy that. Like, people are excited about, honestly, not difficult things to make. That's a healthy sign. right? That's a good thing. If people aren't buying just the best, that's what the watch industry worries. Oh, it's just going to be a couple of those old kooks that like collecting watches and they're all going to die off and the young kids are not going to be into it. That's not happening at all. But the young kids might be into different brands and interested in different types of things. And that's all very fluid. So I don't know what ultimately kill off one popular part of the watch industry, but at any given time, they could all very easily die.
I love that watch brands will sell you something that they can't themselves fix, which I've started to notice.
Yeah, they will manufacture a movement, especially in low quantities. I mean, there's a strategy essentially. If some manufacturers who make these very exotic movements, I mean, like, I don't know, 30 of them or something like that, some small number, you can't put the R&D to make sure those all work, right? Like any mechanic knows, like if it works well in like computer simulation, that doesn't mean anything. Like you have to like R&D it, and that takes time and money. And why are you going to do that if you make 30 of them? So they just make 30 movements. And if someone complains, they're like, oh, here's this other watch as a consolation, or sorry, we'll deal with it privately. Like that's actually more effective to politically deal with it through relationships and compensation prizes than making sure that every single one of those movements works. They've calculated this out as within their culture. They'll schmooze the problem away.
And they celebrate the fact that one person only touched your movement. Well, that's because we don't have the manpower to give it.
They're spinning it. They're spinning PR. Like that's not a good thing. You know.
So
you want like one person building your house? Like, no, I want someone else checking it.
Yeah. We've only got about 5 minutes left with Ariel, so get your race entries in now. We'll pick a couple of free ones at the end, but let me ask you this to close it out, because I know you've got to get out of here. As far as the tariffs go, that had a big impact, it seemed, on the watch industry and watch prices this year, and will continue, it seems, given the Rolex increases and other increases coming in a couple of days, continue to have an impact on watch prices, even though the tariffs have been backed off some. Talk to me about the tariffs and what impact that's had on the industry this year.
It's really hard to quantify it, but it's had a big one. People essentially stopped importing watches into the United States once the tariffs hit. They imported a ton beforehand in anticipation, but if you look at the numbers, they just stopped. And I know this based upon seeing certain types of performance data, but also speaking to a number of watch brands that literally just said, like, I'm going to wait this out, because they would send a couple of watches in and it was such a headache. They were just like, I don't want to do this anymore. The implementation of the tariff scheme, in addition to the tariffs themselves, was so problematic that it prevented a lot of businesses from just doing any business at all. You know, when you theoretically could do more business in America, but it's not your only market, you're just like, I'm going to go to some other market, which is easier. It's too easy to shift a small inventory to other parts of the world than put up with it. So it changed commerce in a lot of ways. Now that tariffs are sort of backing off, I think there was a huge sigh of relief. It's especially important to the big brands that have a pretty big infrastructure out here. They have stores, they have people that expect it. And for honestly, the better part of a year, that was all dead. They'll never talk about it, but they were in serious, like, self-preservation mode. No money spent, a lot of people laid off, and a lot of watches were not being made in Switzerland that would otherwise being made. 2025 was really marked by a huge decrease in manufacturing output. A lot of factories were operating on a temporary basis, maybe just a few days a week, if that, because they weren't making watches because the watches need to be shipped overseas. What we find is the industry has moved to a model where they don't like to make inventory in advance. They make inventory when they feel that it has a place to go, which I know is common in manufacturing logistics today, but they used to, sit on things, make it, we'll sell it later. They know that none of them do that anymore. So they don't think that they can sell them on the market. They stop making watches. If they stop making watches, then the industry starts to go into this type of furlough mode within Switzerland, which causes its own headaches. And nobody's been talking about this at all. This has been a huge issue. If you're in the watchmaking part of Switzerland, everyone knows that there's all these issues. People aren't being paid. All these horrible things are going on, but no one's talking about it at all. Everyone in America is like, oh, watch prices are going up. And I'm like, don't get me wrong, that's bad. But this is the thing. If you just want to spend X amount of dollars on a watch, You'll be able to do it in 2025 and 2026 and 2027. You will still be able to buy something within your number. If it's not the brand you had your heart on, I'm sorry, but there's like hundreds of other options out there. Find a good deal on a used watch. Find a new brand and give them a chance. The collector, again, has to contend with the fact that the watch they've been pining for many years might be something they have to abandon, and that's emotionally tough. But it's at least you have other options out there and plenty of things to get. The industry is trying to get to a refooting mode. I mean, look, you go to Switzerland, and there's this giant war happening not that far, and we talk about the Ukraine war more in the United States than they talk about it in Europe, which is very surprising to me. They just sort of hunker down and wait. They don't sit there and get all bombastic like we do when there's problems. We're really good about sounding the alarm. The Europeans are like, oh, we've been through this before. Time to hunker down. And that's what they kind of do. They wait for the world to get excited about luxury spending again before they go out. And in the meantime, the enthusiast community has become so large that we've sort of taken the reins ourselves. Where a brand in Asia or Europe will not give us the experience we want, look what people are doing. They're making it themselves. That's really, really cool. I'm not even sure what my role is in that type of future, right? I should have some. I don't know what it is. All I know is I continue to offer value to consumers because I help people not waste money. That's what it comes down to. It's very easy to waste money. Most of the discussion points in this conversation have been worries somewhere around money, which I think comes down to I don't want to waste money. I can help a lot of people not waste money. So I know my value is there, but that's what I'm trying to reassure people. Don't worry about it. You will not have to spend more than you're comfortable with if you know what to look for.
And we want to thank Lucha for the $10 super chat. IWC for life. Yes, sir. And AB Ariel, can you put in a good word for me with the Rolex CEO? I can't even get my AD to respond to my texts.
Look, it's amusing, but it kind of goes against what I'm trying to teach people. Go to where your money's valued. If Rolex does not value your money, you're not missing out. It's not like a free brick of gold. Okay. You're not missing out. You'll be able to buy a Rolex at some point. I'm sorry if people's egos are hurt by the fact that they can't buy the watch that they want, but don't take your money to a company that doesn't value it. This is like rule number 1 of luxury spending. Rule number 1, give your money to someone that will kiss your ass for it. Rule number 1, do never break this rule.
Yeah. I agree totally. Ariel, thank you so much for being with us. If you want to stick around for the race, that's fine. But I know we had agreed to get you out of here by 9:30 my time, 7:30 your time. Well, tonight we're doing an Italian brain rot race, so you're going to love it.
My son has told me about this.
Yeah. So we've got everybody in. So give me, folks, 1 or 2 names to add for free, please.
Let's do Skylar.
I
haven't seen Skylar in the race recently.
Do people win something? I'm very confused here.
So if they win the race, they get into a monthly race, and whoever wins the monthly race does win something. Yes.
Okay. So it's a game, and people love this stuff.
Yeah. Hopefully. Anybody else? Skylar and anybody else?
How about Thomas Broadbent?
All right.
And these are members of the community?
Yeah, these are guys who have been watching us this evening. And you know
I love all these innovative shows and things like that. I just don't. It's EL.
EL. See, I had it right the first time, and then I changed it.
You did. I'm not the font.
All right. So we're going to set 44 seconds on the clock. We're going to turn the sound down.
Oh, it's like horse racing.
It is.
Yep.
But it's Italian brain rot. So
but
there we go.
How does the winner decide? Is it random? Is there an algorithm?
It's random because I got no control over it. So we just started.
He mentions these characters. I've never actually seen them.
They're a mess. Nobody knew what it was when we first started racing them, and then I found the cartoon. So we've got DC Chris in the lead right now. Chad coming up quick. The
I love that it's very specifically Italian. They can't just call it brain rot. It's like, no, it's the Italian brain rot. Oh, that makes it more cultured. What?
We got Thomas Broadbent taking the lead momentarily. Usually taking the lead this early in the race doesn't get you a win. But here comes Thomas again, kind of creeping up. The catfish
This is so amusingly random.
It is, but here comes Chad really quick. Here comes Ryan really quick. But I think Thomas Broadbent is our winner this evening. Congratulations, Thomas. We'll get you in the monthly race, and you could win something from JJ's pocket. Yes, that is what we do at the end of every live stream. We race everybody who's super chatted, plus we had a couple of free at the end. So there you go. No, it's not fixed, George.
Wow,
Ariel, thank you again.
my pleasure. Thanks for listening, and thanks for those of you that read the content of Blog to Watch. I really appreciated being on your show, and I'll be happy to come back if you have more questions.
Fantastic. Stick around afterwards if you can, just for a couple of minutes in the back room. We'll end it here. You guys have a great one, and remember to